Well, I'm back. I'm back. I just can't get enough of the scary, spooky vibes today, I guess. But I really wanted to play Vampire Bloodhunt. And I was also watching this really scary video by this guy called Chaos Magic. Very scary, man. This guy is really scary. He's probably doing some satanic black magic ritual right now with his hand gestures. How to become a medium. Let's see what he's got to say.
This is very similar to the work of the Human Resources Department of a business or corporation, only instead of humans, the resources are spirits, just as a newly hired employee must have a training period. In the same way, the magician must take his time in training and, once he has his official spirits, the magician must take time to get to know and train his spirit, to learn what the spirit wants from you and what you want from him, and to come to a mutual agreement, much like a work agreement. In fact, a contract can be signed between you and the spirits, if there are several, with the spirits you have chosen to work with. The problem with contacting a spirit using the Ouija, for example, is that you do not know who will answer the line on the other end. In necromancy, something similar happens. Although the necromancer can perceive the spirit more clearly than using the needle, he does not know what the intentions of the spirit he has contacted are until he has spent a lot of time with that spirit. In this technique that I will teach you, you do not have to worry about not knowing which spirit you will encounter in your practices as a beginner. In this evolutionary method of necromancy, the beginner necromancer will attract the right spirit that will harmonize and specifically correspond to the needs of the beginner necromancer. You must not forget that when dealing with spirits of the deceased, you are dealing with someone who is just like you. The only difference is that one has already passed away and the other has not. So you must take the same precautions that you would when dealing with someone in the flesh. You must know that the spirit of the deceased is not, for some strange reason, wise and knowledgeable just because he has passed away. The only thing that changes at the moment of death is perception, because the deceased no longer has the physical barriers that the necromancer does. That ethereal state of the spirit is what interests the necromancer, and the current physical state of the magician is what interests the spirit. Another thing that the beginner necromancer should know is that there are as many spirits of deceased people and any other type of spirits around him as there are living people around him. When you contact one of these hundreds of thousands of spirits that are around you, the spirit you contacted will surely want you to believe that it is a historical spirit or the spirit of someone famous. Perhaps it even wants to pretend to be a distant relative who is also famous. Just as you would do with a real person one day by chance or for any other day-to-day reason, everything that the spirit tells you should always be viewed from a totally critical point of view and never be guided by what the spirit tells you, at least not at first. You should be guided by its actions. Never be guided by what the spirit tells you. Be guided by its actions. That is how you will know the spirit's intentions. You must also demonstrate to the spirit that you also have a word and do not plan to betray it. If the ghost assures you that it has certain abilities, it will have to prove it before you agree to any deal. When dealing with spirits as a magician, medium, necromancer, you must be as prejudiced and astute as a criminal lawyer in the midst of a courtroom full of criminal lawyers and defendants.
What? What did he say? And where did the picture-in-picture view go, bro? Okay. The full screen is not going to work, is it?
This is what you need to know to become a necromancer magician medium and what you should expect from the spirits of the deceased. Please leave your like, your comment and your subscription so that this information reaches the people who are looking for it. And without further ado, let's begin. A practitioner of necromancy is someone who does business, makes pacts and deals with one or more spirits of the underworld. In the practice of necromancy, both practitioners, magician, and spirits benefit from the act. The necromancer magician assists the spirit with offerings and anything else.
Why is this lagging?
In the same way, the spirit is and makes itself completely available to the magician. The relationship between spirit and necromancer magician must be respectful as in a society and friendly as in a club of comrades, and there must always be the required trust in any transaction of goods. The necromancer is a medium whose job is to speak with deceased beings of the astral plane, ascended magicians, angels, and demons. The necromancer gathers information that the spirit that has no physical boundaries can offer him, especially since the spirit of the deceased already lives in the realm of thought, the subconscious, and the unconscious.
Why is this game lagging like this?
Reason,
Why does this lag? What is this lag?
Physical body information that the magician would otherwise not be able to obtain, at least not through physical means. Not only that, but the spirit that the necromancer contacts can recruit other spirits to also serve the magician in his work as a medium. In general, on my channel and in my videos, I always recommend using one's own power of manifestation, one's own divine power of creation that we possess by having within us a fractional part of the Supreme Source in the form of Paramatma or Divine Spark. I always preach that the magician should study and practice every magical system, path, philosophy, or spiritual science and take from each of them only what is useful and best suited to his own spiritual evolution. So necromancy is one of these magical systems, as effective as all the others. In fact, some may think that necromancy is easier to manifest, since it is always easier for someone else to do the work for you. But necromancy is similar to chaos magic in that you do not need great ceremonies or excessive paraphernalia. Necromancy only has one difficult part in its process, and this part is not contacting spirits, no. The difficult part is finding the right spirit or spirits that will work with you and on your behalf. Spirits are exactly like you, but the difference is that they inhabit another dimension. They, like you, have and follow a personal agenda. They also desire things and seek them just as you do. So the necromancer magician must know the spirit very well before creating a partnership with it. Next, the necromancer must train the spirits to work with him. This is very similar to the work of the human resources department of a business or corporation, only instead of humans, the resources are spirits, just as a newly hired employee must have a training period. In the same way, the magician must take his time in training, and, once he has his official spirits, the magician must take time to get to know and train his spirit, to learn what the spirit wants from you and what you want from him, and to come to a mutual agreement, much like a work agreement. In fact, a contract can be signed between you and the spirits, if there are several, with the spirits you have chosen to work with. The problem with contacting a spirit using the Ouija, for example, is that you do not know who will answer the line on the other end. In necromancy, something similar happens.
I'm gonna try.
Although the necromancer can perceive the spirit more clearly than using the needle, he does not know what the intentions of the spirit he has contacted are until he has spent a lot of time with that spirit. In this technique that I will
Why is my
teach you,
pause play button not working now, dude?
Not have to worry about not knowing which spirit you will encounter in your practices as a beginner. In this evolutionary method of necromancy, the beginner necromancer will attract the right spirit that will harmonize.
How to gain powers over humans?
This is Chaos Magic. Welcome to my channel. Can magic defy the laws of physics? In this new series, we will discover how the magicians of the ancient world obtained supernatural powers. In this video, we will discover the method used by the ancient sage Bisvamitra to reach the state of ascended and liberated master. Please leave your like, your comment, and your subscription so that this information reaches the people who are looking for it. And without further ado, let's begin.
Dude, I got so scared, bro.
As initiates and practitioners of magic, we do not believe that magic and its results are real.
Huh?
No, we, the practitioners, know that magic and its results are real. There is a very big difference between believing and knowing. And in my opinion and personal experience, I can affirm that 90% of all people confuse believing with knowing. Even the most religious and indoctrinated people will tell you that they do believe in God, but very few of them will tell you that they know that God does exist. Believing is for children and the indoctrinated. Knowing is for the wise. Something very similar happens in magic and the occult. There are many initiates who do believe that magic is real in the sense that it is possible to manipulate probabilities in order to obtain desired results. And these same initiates do not know or choose not to believe that magic can not only manipulate probabilities, magic can also break the laws of physics. These initiates I'm talking about deny this second fact, that magic can indeed break the laws of physics. That is true. What I mean
Blood
is that
mage.
yes, apart from manipulating your reality using magic, it is also possible to break the laws of physics. And there are many records of real people with abilities of this type in the ancient world and in the contemporary world. But before we begin, it is important to keep in mind that the holy Hindu Vedas should be taken literally.
What?
The Vedas are not like the Bible that speaks in riddles and puzzles for everyone to speculate about.
What's this lag, bro?
No, the Vedas should be taken as scientific, historical, and also philosophical texts. The Vedas are the manual of material creation and the spiritual world and all that this implies. The Vedas are the unadulterated cream of knowledge. They are the
Really?
nectar that we all must
That is
follow to
surprising.
seek liberation, evolution, and spiritual power. So the first place we will investigate is, as always, the legendary and ancient India, or better known as India. Sid is a Sanskrit word that means achievement, realization, fulfillment. So the sadhus are the sages and magicians who manage to obtain supernatural abilities that are the product of the arduous and hard-fought work of sadhana and its disciplines. Sadhana means or refers to spiritual practices to transcend the ego, such as meditation and yoga. The word R means psychic powers. As we already know, the ancient and sacred Vedic texts are the manual and instructions for how the material
Really surprising that he's talking about
realm
Vedas.
and everything that inhabits and governs both. Yes, there is also a Vedic text that explains in detail how and what to do with what spiritual masters, Asitas, and yogis do to manifest supernatural and superhuman powers and abilities. This sacred and ancient text is called Visuddhimagga. And yes, I have it in my possession and I will break it down for you in this new series. In this video, we will meet one of these spiritual masters who managed to exhibit supernatural powers and it was well reported in the Hindu Vedas. His name is Visvamitra and his story is marked by an implacable determination that led him to enlightenment and spiritual self-realization, thus overcoming all the sorrows and adversities that arose in his life. We as Luciferians can understand and see his life in adversity that Lucifer leads us so that we can attain light, power, magic, and liberation. So we must pay attention and follow his example. Visvamitra was born into royalty under the name of Kakatiya, who also became who appears in the epic legend of the Ramayana. Many of us initiated on the path of spiritual evolution wonder what we have to do with the ego. Have you ever wondered what we have to do with our ego? Is it positive or negative? Should we preserve it or eliminate it, nullify it? Should we be humble? The evolutionary magician must be humble. Does being humble mean that one attains power? just as ordinary people and simple mortals draw inspiration from the biographies of extraordinary people. In the same way, the evolutionary magician, who is extraordinary in himself, must draw inspiration not from extraordinary people like himself, but from liberated, enlightened, and ascended beings. The Vedas describe 4 orders of life or social orders, 4 castes that are called varnas. The highest caste is that of the thinkers or brahmanas, who are the wise ascetas, yogis, and spiritual teachers. Then comes the varna of the leaders, rulers, and military warriors, the kshatriyas. Next we find the working class and merchants, the vaisyas. And finally, and at the bottom of the pyramid,
Very surprising that he's talking about the Vedas.
and paupers.
Like,
So Bismamitra
actually
was born into
shocking.
the warrior and ruling class, considered part of royalty, the kshatriyas. The importance of this ancient Vedic sage and ascended master is transcendental in time and space. We already know that the true name of India was and is Bharata, and the sage Bismamitra is the reason for this. This ascended master, unknown to most of us Westerners, not only managed to transcend the illusion of Maya and acquire superhuman abilities, using and doing arduous and hard penances. In addition to this, Bismamitra also had an intense love affair with a celestial nymph. And the consequence of all this was the founding of the Bharata dynasty. But what are the Bharatas? This Sanskrit word, where it has its root, is divided into Vya, which means light, and Das, which means devotion. Therefore, the Bharatas are devotees of the light, that is, devotees of knowledge, wisdom, and, of course, enlightenment. And the evolutionary magician can identify with this completely. This is what being devotees of the flame of Lucifer would be for us, the evolutionary magicians of the West. Thanks to King Bismamitra and his supernatural and divine abilities, this world kingdom was given the name of Bharata, because the daughter of this king gave birth to the grandson of Bismamitra, who would be known as the powerful King Bharata, from whom this kingdom directly receives its name. Bharata and his dynasty of kings, devotees of enlightenment. When studying the ancient world and especially the Vedic era, we must always keep in mind that we are talking about kingdoms and world governments. Countries as we know them today did not exist. And all this is very well recorded in the ancient Vedic texts. In this case, the Rig Veda, King Bismamitra, was the teacher of the avatar of Vishnu, the powerful king and Lord Rama, protagonist of the epic legend of the Ramayana. Bismamitra influenced not only the spirituality of the ancient world, but also the social and political spheres. And for all these reasons, the evolutionary magician must know and take as a guide and example the steps of this ascended master. If what he desires is transcendental, spiritual, supernatural power and to be able to conduct himself in this material world with mastery in all areas. To understand the history of the ancient world a little better, we must see it through the lens of the 4 yugas of time. King Bismamitra's life was placed in the in this era did not last 100 years. It last thousands of years. In the Treta 3 of Vishnu's avatars were incarnated: Lord Vamana, Lord Parasurama, and Lord Rama, the protagonist of Ramayana and student of our King Bismamitra. Bismamitra, like all kings, or at least like most of them, relied more than anything on the physical power of himself and his many hundreds of sons who made up his army. For this reason, he did not possess much knowledge about the sacred power of divine wisdom, but that was about to change. So King Kauchika, who had not yet become the wise Bismamitra until later on, let us remember that the Rishis are people who obtain superhuman powers using the power of divine knowledge and harsh penances. Our King Kauchika coveted a powerful Rishi named Vachista, because he had in his possession a sacred and very special cow named Sarabi. This cow possessed the divine power to fulfill anything that was asked of it. This powerful Richie named Bachista obtained his wish-granting cow through his participation in the epic legend of Samudra Mantana, or the epic legend of the churning of the ocean by the demigods and demons who sought to obtain the elixir of immortality and managed to achieve it by working together with demons and gods. This powerful cow emerged from the waves of the ocean of milk as it was being churned by demigods and demons. Here I open a parenthesis to share with you that I consume the so-called monoatomic gold or mormus, which I extract precisely from the seawater, from the ocean water, from the very place where the gods and demons obtain their elixir of immortality. On one occasion, the king had not taken the wise inherited the land from the wise
Where?
By this time,
Dude, where am I supposed to go? Where the hell is...
So Bachista offered him
What?
that could be offered to a king,
What?
abundant food, luxurious accommodations and pleasures, which seemed extraordinary to the king, since
What
this
the hell is
wise
this?
man lived an austere life in the middle of the forests, in the middle of his forests.
Dude, climb, climb!
This miraculous
Oh,
event
shit.
was the turning
What the
point
hell?
in the life of the powerful King Kauchika, who
What
would later
kind-
become a powerful rich man. When the king learned that the miracle was performed by the sacred cow of the wise Bachista, the king offered him 100,000 cows from his own kingdom in exchange for his miraculous cow alone. And as expected, the powerful mystic and ascended master Bachista refused. This caused the king to become enraged and a hard and bloody fight began between the two powerful individuals. One a king, the other an ascended master and a mortal sage, one with his mortal army and the other with the powerful divine force of his cow, from which entire armies emanated. In this way, the sage Richiesta literally reduced the king's army to ashes and defeated him. Thus King Kauchika was defeated and his sons reduced to nothing by the immortal sage. The grief and pain of his great loss did not allow him to continue leading his kingdom, and he made the decision to leave one of his sons as his successor and retire, self-exiling himself to Mount Himalaya to perform tapasya near the abode of Lord Shiva, which is Mount Kailak, one of the sacred peaks of Mount Himalaya. What is tapasya?
Tapasya?
Tapasya is the practice of material and spiritual austerity and self-discipline that is performed for the purpose of achieving enlightenment, liberation, and spiritual self-realization. The practitioner must generate internal heat and inner energy using all the power of his concentration, meditation, and other harsh mental austerities. All this with the purpose of cleansing and purifying all negative karma and thus reaching elevated states of consciousness. Take note of this because for the evolutionary magician this is crucial. In order for the evolutionary magician to perform tapasya properly, just like the king, he must do the following. 1. Deep meditation. We already know the steps to do a theta state meditation. 2. Fasting. Reducing the consumption of food and drinks is a method of purifying your body and psyche. We already know that desire binds even the desire for food. 3. Physical austerities, living with simplicity and humility. Practicing non-violence, this includes food also. And performing pious rituals dedicated to the Supreme Source. Yes, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 4. Control of speech. Speaking wisely, avoiding harmful words. 5. Mental discipline. This is purity of mind and thoughts. Respect for others. These seem simple things, but in reality they are very difficult things to achieve, much more so in our times and in this age of Kali Yuga, the age of iron. Once the king had performed this on the top of Mount Himalaya and after some time
Salutations.
had managed to attract the attention of Lord Shiva, who was always present at his abode, Mount Kailak. Pleased with the austerities endured by the king, who used to be a perfect materialist, Lord Shiva decided to teach the king and impart to him the science of Dhanurveda. This is the divine science of archery in the art of war. This involves military training, martial skills, handling of the bow and arrow, combat, military forms, strategy, battle formations, and so on and so forth. All this was imparted by the god of destruction himself, Lord Shiva. When the king descended from Mount Himalaya, with his new skills and his new divine and spiritual power, achieved by his austerities and by the favor of Lord Shiva, the first thing he did was to go to the land of the old, wise and immortal who owed him a revenge, and the latter was prepared to exact a heavy price for it. And that is what he did. The king took his bow and shot his powerful arrows, destroying the entire place amidst powerful, almost atomic explosions that almost split the very ground beneath their feet. We must know that when we talk about Vedic arrows, we are not talking about the arrows of the Apaches. We are talking about divine weapons of mass destruction that are the equivalent, or would be the equivalent, of the hypersonic missiles that we see today. Upon realizing this, since the wise Bacchus was taken by surprise, he responded to the king's fury by neutralizing his powerful attack with his raw danda. The raw danda is a rod like the rod or scepter of the magician that also functions as a protective armor against celestial
Dude, are you
destructive weapons
serious?
such as those that King Kauchika now possessed. These divine weapons that these two powerful individuals were using are also called Brahmastras. So the old immortal sage was able to survive the attack of the king's Brahmastra thanks to his Grandar, with which he managed to neutralize the apocalyptic attack. Thus, once again the king succumbed to the power of the divine wisdom of the old immortal sage. But this time, this new defeat did not destroy the king's morale as it had done before, but on the contrary,
Multiplier.
it opened his eyes and mind. It awakened him. It awakened him to the true
What the hell?
strength and effectiveness that the power of knowledge and sacred wisdom possesses, the power of divine wisdom. The king once again made the decision to retire to the solitude of the south to practice tapestry once more, but this time he did so for 1,000 years. At the end of this time of harsh austerity and spiritual work, the king was finally recognized as a rishi, a mystical and powerful immortal sage, an ascended master. The king had finally reached the level of the old Bacchus sage. The king was already an ascended master, and it was then that he stopped calling himself King Kauchika to become the powerful Rishi sage Bisvami. The story does not end there. We will continue studying and taking the example and practices of this powerful ascended master so that we too can obtain supernatural and superhuman power. But that will be in the next video. For now, we already know how to perform tapasya to obtain spiritual power and superhuman power, just like a demigod or mortal in the IC.
They improved the weapon sounds, bro. Definitely improved it. Dude, why can't I aim for shit in... I'm using like a revolver, bro. This was very surprising.
This is Chaos Magic. Welcome to my channel, the story of how Chaos Magic began. What is Chaos Magic? Please like, comment, and subscribe so that this information reaches the people who are looking for it. Without further ado, let's begin. The Chaos Magician must use no path as a path, must have no limitations as limitations. While this phrase fits perfectly with the spiritual philosophy of Chaos Magic, it is actually a phrase from the great icon and legend of martial arts and superstar of the action cinema of the 70s, the great master Bruce Lee and his style without style, or his JIT Kundo, which I translate to the evolutionary magic of chaos as the magical system without a magical system. The first correspondence between Chaos Magic and JIT Kundo that caught my attention is the name of this martial arts school, Jit Kundo, which in Spanish means the way of the intercepting fist.
I'm alone?
We already saw in
Dude.
the previous video that the best defense is always the attack.
I'm going to die
Video in
alone.
the description, and it is precisely a scene like this that the name Jit Kundo draws in our minds. A powerful fist that is not being used to initiate an aggression, but to block and counterattack. The name Chitundo expresses precisely that, an act of self-defense that in our particular case is chaos magician, self-defense, psychic self-defense, intercepting, counterattacking, but never initiating an aggression. Lee teaches that the act of intercepting is key in this philosophy of the school of Gitundo, whether it is intercepting the opponent's technique or intercepting the opponent's intention, sensing his aggression and anticipating it by a fraction of a second, thus neutralizing said aggression. In Chaos Magic, the evolutionary magician does exactly the same. He only responds with aggression when he feels wronged by one. But if his intuition, cunning or fangs indicate that someone in the shadows is preparing to strike, the magician can decide to wait for the blow, dodge it and counterattack, or he can move forward and strike first, neutralizing the opponent. Jit Kundo has three basic principles that guide the initiate in this school of martial arts, which are the following. 1. Simplicity. Jeet Kune Do prepares the student with physical and philosophical techniques that he or she will need to cultivate so that when life presents them with challenges and adverse situations, they have the necessary tools, simple and advanced, and can use them at any time. It is the same in chaos magic. The magician only works with the tools that truly serve him, that are easy to obtain, that he has on hand and that he can use at any time without much effort. 2. Always be direct. The student initiated into Jeet Kune Do learns to always use and choose the direct path as the main option when facing an opponent or adversity, and always do it quickly, agilely, making a decision in a fraction of a second, and executing the action just as quickly. In chaos magic, the magician must also act in the same way, to the letter, agile, lively, always 1,000 steps ahead of everyone, always intuitive, always calm, but ready for anything. Alert, alert. 3. Freedom. Style without style because we took from each martial arts discipline only what was useful to them. One of several things we call something from Aikido, something from something from boxing and Greco-Roman wrestling, etc. etc. All this in the same way, the philosophy of chaos magic has 3 principles that guide the initiated magician. Number 1, ritual. The number 1 principle of Jeet Kune Do was simplicity. And the chaos magician's ritual must be simple and good as it can, with what is easy to obtain. The chaos magician is aware that the power lies and emanates from within himself, and the tools are just that, a visual and sensory support for his senses, which tend to get distracted by everything and anything. Number 2, sigils. Principle number 2 is to be direct. Sigils are just that, direction. Sigils are tools that give direction to energy so that it arrives and works directly where and how it was ordered. And principle number 3 of chaos magic is dreaming. Dreams belong to the collective, subconscious, and conscious. And these in turn are the so-called abyss. The chaos magician works directly in the abyss. For the evolutionary magician, the abyss or the world of dreams is his field. His ring, his track, his octagon, his field of action, his battlefield. In the world of dreams or the realm of the subconscious and unconscious, limitations, the physical world do not exist. There is no time, no distance, no walls, no borders. The only thing there is freedom. Remember that principle 3 of Jeet Kune Do. Yes, that's right, it is freedom. When I was around 19 or 20 years old, he brought into my life in an extraordinary way all the knowledge and purest nectar of Vedic science and philosophy. I will tell you this story in the second or third part of my series, my experience crossing the abyss. This event that came into my life suddenly initiated me into the true mysteries of life. It initiated me into the Vedas. I was able to understand how karma works, how reincarnation or transmigration of the soul works. I was able to discover that our material plane is infinitely older than contemporary education would have us believe, and that our current civilization is not the peak of technological and intellectual advancement. I learned that in fact we will continue to decline in every sense, and it is up to each person to free themselves from this inevitable fate. It is inevitable, because we have the 4 great cycles of time that advance without stopping, and that is how they work, from better to worse, from splendor to decline, from life to death and back to life, over and over and over again. And so the years passed. A little more than 15 years went by, in which many things clearly happened that I will tell you about later, but for now we will fast forward to my 31st year, in mid-2021.
This is a public announcement.
At that time I found myself crossing the abyss for the second time, but this time I had entered it consciously. Consciously and voluntarily, or voluntarily conscious, either way. I had decided to hit rock bottom, to get rid of everything completely, job, apartment, hopes, dreams, friends, everything, and I did it. In a very short time, one day I found myself renting a large house, just for me and my dog, driving a BMW and with a good job in the state government. The next day I was renting a small room with exposed brick, a galvanized sheet metal roof, and no glass in the windows. I was renting a small room where I used to do a home invasion. It hadn't been that many years. At least I had my dog Juanita with me, a beautiful black stuffy pit bull who by then was already between 4 and 5 years old and accompanied me throughout the entire process, before I wrote it and beyond. So, I was very aware that I was in that place of my own free will, but I didn't know if I would ever be able to leave it. That's how my days passed, completely alone, me and my Juana. I had even distanced myself from my mother. I will reveal all these details. For now, you should know that, in the same sudden way invaded time arrived in my life 10 years ago, occultism had arrived. Although not as extraordinarily as the Vedas, it had arrived to pull me out of the abyss, to teach me what I had done from the point of view that I needed. It had come to show me the right spirituality for me. The ideal spirituality of the West. Occultism had come into my life by the hand of Jeremiah Schwartz and his Universal Mastery channel. Yes, like some of you, occultism, Kabbalah, sigils, tarot, demons, divination, the Goda, all this had come to me through a YouTuber. And since I have always liked to test everything I discover, or in other words, I don't like anyone telling me things, I like to see them for myself. I set out to put what Jeremiah was teaching me to the test. I did it completely free of all fear, of all dread. I was already in the hole, I couldn't keep falling any further, I had nothing more to lose. If this also went wrong, what did it matter? So I began to really study all his videos. Little by little I discovered what Kabbalah was, a word that I only knew because I remember hearing something about Kabbalistic magic on a chess burrito program as a child. The word stuck with me because it caught my attention, but I never knew what it was until Jeremiah explained it to me. I also knew that there is a deck of cards called the tarot that was used to deceive superstitious people, scaring them with a future full of horrors and misfortunes. Nothing could be further from the truth. Jeremiah explained to me that tarot works as long as the symbolism of its art is based on the symbolism of Kabbalah. He showed me that tarot comes precisely from Kabbalah, and Kabbalah can also be seen through the eyes of tarot. That they are two things that complement and explain each other. From Jeremiah I also learned that demons are spirits that, although they exist outside of me, are also part of my own subconscious and unconscious, and that by working with each of them you are working with those parts of your own being to unlock them and, each time, be a little more and more your true self. With this foundation I had what I needed to build my own ship, put my own Jolly Roger or pirate flag with a skull and crossbones on it and set sail into the dark and lonely abyssal ocean. Just like Luffy does looking for his One Piece, but without beds or friends to accompany me on my new adventure. Well, only a faithful companion who had been and would continue to be crucial in this new abyssal journey. In search of my treasure, in search of my One Piece. Thanks to this new knowledge I was able to understand my past and the reason for everything. I was able to see that the Vedas were introduced to me when I was 20 years old to begin my journey on the Tree of Life, and now that life had given me the occult, it was so that I could travel and leave the Qliphothic Tree of Shadows where I found myself. I continued studying and practicing until I began to see results with my sigils. I also bought my own tarot deck. I bought the Marseille one, because I have always been a follower of the work of the great master Alejandro Jodorowsky, and he recommends this tarot. To begin to be a complete occultist, you must know and practice the Kabbalah and the Tarot. But to know and practice the Tarot, you must have a physical deck, your own deck with Kabbalistic symbolism. Once I felt confident and prepared, once I knew well what I had in front of me, I decided to take the step and make a pact with Lucifer.
What?
And the pact was
Why?
the following. I promised and committed myself to speak the name of Lucifer every day and to all the people I could reach. In return, he would give me wisdom, peace, and also the goods and material resources necessary to never worry and to be able to advance my spiritual evolution. And that is how I obtained a new ship, larger and more resistant, with much more range and power. But in this way, I also had to say goodbye to my old ship, my old little boat, my going merry. Yes, my going merry, my old ship, was my Juanita. My ship that had accompanied me for 8 years since I was a puppy, became ill and passed away on Saturday, March 16, 2024. After 2 long weeks of agony and suffering, the distemper took her away in a very brutal and painful way for both me and her. This happened just a short time after I had made my pact and just a few months before I could leave this ugly, marginal room that had been my home for more than 4 years. For some reason, when I first arrived in this marginal room, before I learned about the occult, I knew or sensed that my Juanita would not leave this place. And for the 4 years I lived there, I lived with that concern. But when it happened, I knew why. She was the price I had to pay. She became the sacrifice I had to pay. Just as great artists and stars have to pay a similar sacrifice, a sacrifice of love, in order to access the life of fame and glamour that they seek so much. I had to lose my faithful friend and companion in suffering, my first little boat on this abysmal and hidden adventure, in order to obtain a larger, stronger, and more powerful ship. And this ship is my YouTube platform, and my crewmates are companions and friends that I did not have at the beginning of this journey are you, my new companions in search of the One Piece, in search of the treasure of treasures that each one of us deserves. Be like water that finds its way through the cracks, don't be assertive, but adapt to the object and you will find a way around it or through it. If nothing within you remains rigid, external things will reveal themselves. Empty your mind, be formless, formless like water. If you put water in a cup, it becomes the cup. If you put water in a bottle, it becomes the bottle. If you put water in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be like water, my friend. Bruce. Oh.
Boa constructor. Damn. Succubus. What? Refill armor by feeding command and enemy to stick. Okay. Okay. Invulnerability. Pierce through matter. Okay. All of them available? So hot, bro. What the fuck? Based. Scrounger. Damn. Love the art direction of this game, bro. This is amazing, dude. Ritual remains. Free premium pass. Wow. Unlocks how many days? Hey, a lot of cool outfits and oh, damn, bro. Present. How many days? So sweet, bro. It's like a complete game. Amazing game, bro. Lord. Mm. Okay. I'm gonna play this game more often, bro. This is so cool. But now I'm tired, so I need to sleep. That was a good productive day of streaming complete random nonsense. But anyway, I'm gonna see you guys tomorrow, I guess. Na 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 na.